Next up, we have Christina Couch and Cara Giaimo. They are science journalists and alums of the MIT Graduate Program of Science Writing. You can find their writing everywhere: the New York Times, Nova, Wired, Atlas Obscura. They are here to discuss their new book, Detector Dogs, Dynamite Dolphins, and More Animals with Super Sensory Powers. I love this. I learned so much from reading this book. I loved it. Wow. It's so cool. First, I'm an animal lover. How did you guys come up with the idea to tell this story?
Chris, I think you're muted, just so you know.
Oh,
Um, but I can answer that. I think Chris and I, we went to school together and we learned that we had a lot of things in common, like, liking to write in sort of a funny or amusing way, liking to find strange things to write about in the world that most people don't know about. But then we also had some differences, like in terms of our interests. Like I really love animals and writing about the environment and ecology, and Chris really loves writing about anatomy and brain science and gross stuff, I would say. So we wanted to work together, and we found this kind of overlap in this topic of animals that do jobs to help people and how they do it with their amazing senses. So that's how we came to it.
well, this question may be for Christina then. I'm curious if she likes the gross stuff. Did you write the first chapter about the dog, the only dog in the world trained to sniff killer whale poop? Was that yours?
Oh, friend, I did. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. We found this one dog that's trained to sniff killer whale poop, and we're actually going to read a little bit from that chapter later. And this dog plays an incredibly important role in terms of conservation, and the combination of like whale poop and dog sniffing, irresistible to me.
Well, I know there are lots of dog lovers out there. What you guys really break down all that a dog can do. And I'm a dog lover. I have one asleep right now, and I thought about these are all the things that he's capable of doing if he's not asleep. What else can dogs do? These sort of amazing talents they have as detectors.
You want to answer that, Chris, because it's your chapter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So dogs can do an absolutely incredible number of things just with their nose. Dogs smell somewhere around 10,000 to 100,000 times better than we do for most things, not for everything. Bananas are actually one scent that humans and dogs smell about equally. So it's not everything, but it is the vast majority of things. But dogs are used in all sorts of contexts, from sniffing out diseases and explosives to conservation purposes. There are lots of different dogs that are working in different conservation capacities. And so it's really, really broad. All sorts of retrieval projects, search and rescue. Dogs are truly incredible creatures.
Well, you guys have lots of incredible creatures in this book. So I'm going to throw out a list, and I want you to pick out your favorite one. And I'll just give a few: ferrets, seals, pigeons, goats, bomb detecting dolphins, earthquake predicting cows, a shark that tweeted. I had so much fun finding out about all these animals. Each of you pick one and tell me what you discovered.
Cara, you go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I really developed a new appreciation of pigeons while writing this book. I think pigeons are an animal that many of us see maybe every day. And I was not aware of just how amazing they and other birds as well are at navigation, because they can actually tap into a source of information that humans can't access at all, which is the Earth's magnetic fields. And it's also really interesting to learn a little bit about how scientists have figured this out, because obviously we don't have this sense at all. So trying to figure out a sense, like, it's like trying to imagine a color that doesn't exist, right? Or that we can't see. It's so hard to even wrap your head around it. And so some of the really ingenious experiments that scientists have come up with to discover how pigeons interact with the world were really interesting to me. And also the fact that people have been using pigeons to send messages for so many thousands of years, like back to ancient civilizations. Like pigeons were basically the first telephones. And I feel like we don't really give them enough credit for that when we're walking by them on the sidewalk.
For me, it's all about the ferrets. I didn't know anything about ferrets really before embarking on this. And so I was really surprised. We found a group of working ferrets, and their job is to, they help people lay underground, run underground pipes. So they wear these little teeny very adorable little backpacks and vests, and they run through underground pipes with string, and it helps people string pipes through places without digging up the entire surface. But ferrets they have this like incredible place in science. I learned a lot about whisker systems and how valuable they are in terms of researching the human brain. Whiskered animals, some of them have a structure called the barrel cortex, which is a thing in their brain that works almost like an old-timey telephone, like plug into the brain. So you can pluck one single whisker and then see exactly where it resonates in the brain. And that's not a thing that you can do a lot of times with people. And so whiskered animals are really important for researching things like neuroplasticity, and ferrets have been used in all sorts of amazing contexts that I didn't know about. One ferret was actually used to help put together one of the first particle accelerators.
I'm curious.
Right. So we got to talk a little bit about.
I really want to replace this with a ferret or a pigeon. It sounds like so much more fun to communicate with people.
Totally.
So before I let you guys read from your book as well, too, which was so great, how does a shark send a tweet?
How does the shark send a tweet? That's a really good question. So that's another kind of zany thing that happened when scientists were trying to learn more about animals and how they live. One thing that scientists like to do to learn about animals is put different gizmos on them, usually pretty small, unobtrusive gizmos that they can carry around with them while they travel. And then we can see things like where they are, where they're going, where they've been. And so there's one chapter in the book that focuses on a big project to track animals all around the world. And one precursor to this project, or another example of this, was there was a shark, I believe her name was Mary Lee, or was it Mary Lee? Yeah. Who wore a little transmitter, and every time, basically every day or every time maybe that she made contact with the satellite that was tracking her, she would send a tweet that basically said the equivalent of like, here's my latitude and longitude if you want to come say hello. So I always really like when scientists find ways to help animals communicate with us. Yeah.
So could you guys please read a section from your book? Because it's so good. It's so enjoyable. So you pick a spot.
Okay, we're going to read a spot about the dog that sniffs killer whale poop. And this is the actual dog. Her name is Eva. So we're going to read a little bit about this incredible dog and what she does.
I can hold it up, Chris, if you want to read.
Perfect. At 6:30 a.m., the sun rises off the shores of Washington State. Riding on a boat that's cruising along the coastal waterway, Eva zigzags through the choppy waves on a ferocious hunt for floating patties of poo. Eva is a snuggly brown and white terrier mix, and possibly the only dog in the world trained to sniff killer whale poop. From May through October, when an endangered population of killer whales, known as the southern residents, migrate through, Eva and Dr. Giles, the human scientist she works with, stay ready. When they get a call that killer whales, also called orcas, have been spotted in the area, they hop on their boat and head to the spot where the whales were sighted. As they get close, Giles, she goes by her last name, slows the boat down, and they steadily crisscross through the waves, searching for sticky blobs of poop that bob to the surface and smell like sour old fish. These poop blobs might be red, green, blue, or yellow, and Eva can smell them as far as 20 football fields away. When she gets a whiff, she starts whining, licking her lips anxiously, and moving in the direction of the scent, so Giles knows where to guide the boat. If they're lucky, they'll find thick, gooey, cake batter-like whale poop floating on the surface. When they do, Giles scoops it up using a big beaker attached to a long pole and brings it back to shore. Dr. Giles is a killer whale biologist. She and Eva are both members of Dr. Samuel Wasser's lab at the University of Washington's Center for Conservation Biology. Southern resident killer whales are the only endangered killer whales in the United States, and scientists want to find the best way to protect them. Since 2005, Giles has been patrolling the waters of the Pacific Northwest to understand why there are fewer whales coming through and whether the ones that do pass by are healthy. Since it's hard to run tests on whales as they're swimming through the ocean, scientists like Wasser and Giles act like detectives and look for things that whales leave behind that can offer clues about what they're eating and what kinds of dangers they're encountering. A big sticky blob of whale poop can tell scientists all kinds of things: what species of fish the whales are eating, if the whales are having babies, and if they're feeling stressed out. Just like people, whales make special hormones when they feel scared or uncomfortable, and those hormones come out the same way that digested food does. But finding clues like whale poop is a huge challenge. The poop floats on the surface for a short time, only about 30 minutes, before sinking or being consumed by small, poop-eating sea creatures, which is why Eva and her super sensitive snout are so important to this work.
Wow. That is an amazing dog, and also so amazing about Kittlewells as well too. I learned a ton from that. I'm curious. So many of our viewers probably are looking at you two thinking, I want to go become a scientist. I want to go to MIT and write about cool stuff like that. What advice do you guys have for, for young blossoming scientists out there?
So, I mean, neither of us are scientists, but we are science writers. So, our job is basically to call up scientists and ask them about their jobs so that we can tell people about them. Because the thing about scientists is they often have one super specific area of expertise. And science writers, like one of the fun things about that job is you get to talk to a lot of different people and sort of get like a broad view of things. Like in this book, we have 8 different examples of the same thing. So I guess my advice for kids who want to like learn more about science is, and maybe science writing, is just to like stay super curious and ask a lot of questions, because that's how you learn things that people don't think to tell you for whatever reason. And that's how I've learned almost everything interesting that I've ever learned in my life, is asking a question to a real person.
I would add too that you don't have to be great at science to be a really great science writer. I was never a student that was particularly good with at lab science, but I love all the weird and wonderful and eye-opening and awe-inspiring things about science. And for me, that's how I sort of broke into the job that I have. It is totally okay if you are a kid who is interested in narrative development and great stories and all of that. You can absolutely, there's still a place for you in science.
Totally. And like, as we learned also from Jasmine's book, like science can be presented as this very sort of like sterile, cut and dry thing where there's a question and then you find an answer and then it's over. But it's really not like that. It's just people trying to answer questions. And the stories of how they do that are often really, really interesting.
I am a writing teacher, and I think one of the hardest things to do is to make something like this just thrilling in storytelling. And you two just knocked it out of the park. We don't have many Stephen Hawkings that are wonderful writers as well as amazing scientists as well too. And it takes somebody to tell their story. And you guys told a wonderful. I loved your book. I also loved like the activities involved. So in every chapter, you gave something for the reader to do as well too. Can you talk about that quickly?
Yeah, we wanted, first of all, we wanted to have something that felt hands-on and that you can test out for yourself. And we also wanted something that, one of the coolest things about my job is hearing something weird and wonderful that I've never heard of before and immediately wanting to tell everybody about it. And so we wanted to make points where you could actually do things with other people and it would feel more communal in that way. So we have a chapter at the end of every single, we have an activity at the end of every chapter that's designed to get you involved in the story.
I was doing them myself too. I think I did 2 or 3 of them. So you guys captivated me. Thank you so very, very much for joining us today.